Alex, we're here Saturday, British Grand Prix. Just had qualifying, quite an exciting one. Mercedes look like they're there. George Russell taking a fantastic pole position.
Fantastic pole position from George. He's looked sort of on it all day, quick in the wet in FP3. Lewis Hamilton second, Lando Norris third. I think that's something of a surprise result, given how good Lando's been lately. And it all pretty much went wrong for Red Bull. Sergio Perez off in the gravel, and Max Verstappen damaging his car as well. So yeah, I think that was, if anything, I think that was the biggest shock of the session, right?
Do you think the conditions have obviously played into the British drivers' hands? Obviously a British 1, 2, 3, great for the fans here. Do you think it is conditions which just help them achieve that?
I think there's two things to look at with the conditions. I think George Russell said it perfectly. The changing conditions and it's almost like Canada, right? We saw Mercedes very good in the mixed conditions in Canada. And George says when it came like that today, the car was perfect. I think there was a little bit of I'm a bit nervous in Q1, Q2 in terms of like they were trying to save tyres. I think they want to use those soft tyres for the race tomorrow. So they're being quite a lot of thinking going. Let's put it that way. Comes out for Q3, bang! Suddenly he's on it. Car feels great, car feels perfect, all that conditions. Now, that topic came up in the press conference, actually. Someone says, well, why are the British drivers... but I think the question actually was, why are the British drivers so good?
Yes.
And the answer was roast beef from Lewis Hamilton. Very witty from Lewis there. But no, I think then the conversation went on, Lando Norris saying, well, we're just used to these conditions. You know, it does rain a lot here. Having said that, rains a lot in the Netherlands.
It
Belgium,
does.
And that's why Max Verstappen's so good. So I don't think we can solely claim ownership of wet weather.
Just focusing on George for a second, obviously he had that win in Austria. He was very unlucky in Canada. Do you think that this is his moment now to shine? Mercedes seem to be on top of all their problems with the porpoising at the start of last year, and obviously they've gone through many evolutions of the car, and they seem to be coming out the other side now, and he seems to be the one that's benefiting the most from the changes that are being made.
Very much so. I think again he's very quick to highlight the Monaco update, the front wing, what's going right there. I know, Ben, you scoffed at my suggestion when Lewis Hamilton was talking about they understand where to generate the downforce in the right levels of the cars, but no, I think genuinely Mercedes have turned a corner with that. But I actually don't view it as now this is George's moment. I think since the start of the season he's been absolutely delivering, and I think it's funny. It's interesting. I spoke to Lando Norris in Spain. I said, that first win in Miami, has it done that thing where it's like, the monkey's off my back? Can I now go on to bigger and better things? So I do a Ricky Bobby from NASCAR in my hands there. Anyway. And he was like, no, not for me, actually, not for me. It's just like the only thing in the back of the mind is I know I can do it. But I wonder whether it's different with George, having got that win last weekend now. That I think made it, because basically his point about Canada was I was just trying too hard, and I tried and I messed up, and it just took me over the limit in what was a challenging race. And I think that's what he's reflecting on. And I just don't know, I just got a feeling that with what happened last weekend, where he was excellent, Mercedes insiders saying his best weekend of the season, only good enough for third until the crash happened, but he was in the right place to capitalise. And I just think that George is that sort of driver where actually, okay, I've got my second F1 win, a good Grand Prix win. I've done what I was trying to do in Canada. Now here I am. I've performed right when it matters in front of my home crowd at Silverstone, and potentially, having done what I did last weekend, I can go on and go one better than Canada, or a couple of spots better than Canada tomorrow. Yeah,
it's finding confidence, isn't it? It's confidence in the car and confidence in yourself. Of course, he's got Lewis Hamilton breathing down his neck. Hugely successful driver here in the home race. Won it 8 times, I think.
Record, yes.
So obviously can't discount him tomorrow. What do you make of Lewis's attitude, how he was in the press conference? Seemed fairly relaxed. Obviously disappointed, would rather be on pole, but he's desperate to go out with a bang, isn't he, with Mercedes, and say goodbye in circumstances, and I think that a win here would obviously go some way to doing that.
Massively. I think it was really interesting. I thought he was very magnanimous when he got out of the car, very energised. Obviously they do enjoy sort of the home crowd here and what that brings. I think just delighted for the team, for one thing. That was in front of the TV cameras in Park Vermo when they got out of the cars, speaking to David Coulthard. They come upstairs, and again, everybody's fine. Lewis did his thing, delays the press conference, gets changed. George Russell, Lando Norris, let's get on with it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Lewis walks in. It's still all fine. And then a question comes in.
Yes.
It was unfortunately worded. It was sort of a little bit of a language barrier thing. That basically what the question boils down to is, if your Mercedes was this good this time last year, would you still have made the choice to go to Ferrari? And you saw that his face change, his demeanour change. He clenches up. Obviously the answer is no. Of course, he's not going to say anything else. Of course. But he just, from then on, you could just say, Lewis is just, that. I get it. It's what else is he going to say in that scenario? So yeah, he was a bit less pleased, less infused with the media afterwards, understandably, with that kind of question. But yeah, I don't know. It's only qualifying for Lewis.
Yeah.
Like second pole position. Unless it's a victory, it doesn't matter.
He knows his race pace is usually better, isn't it? He's usually a better driver on a Sunday, can usually put it together. Mixed conditions again, potentially tomorrow, bit around rain around 1 o'clock. So yeah, I mean, it could mix things up for him nicely.
I think so. I think that's another thing that sort of Mercedes are talking about. Is that Russell has been excellent in qualifying. I think that's something that Lewis should probably reflect on there. What's sort of going wrong? But again, the race pace still. Lewis is one of the masters of that. Max Verstappen excellent.
Yeah.
But George Russell, that was always the sort of question mark. So again, actually, it'll be a very interesting race tomorrow. Obviously, Max is starting fourth. Lando alongside him. There'll be what's going to go on there. If the two Mercs are still in front as the first stint developed, then it'll be interesting. Is Russell able to make that step, or will Lewis be able to come last?
You mentioned Lando. That car is very quick. We've seen it. It's quick wherever they go. I mean, it's quite amazing what McLaren have done. The upgrades that they brought to that car. It's just quick out of the box. Wherever they put it on the track, start delivering. Has he got the pace tomorrow to oversee the two Mercs in front?
Judging by the times that I went through after FP2, yes. I mean, the standout car, shockingly, is the Red Bull, but the McLaren only a tenth behind, and that really is nothing, especially with Max starting back in the pack. Lando quite keen to talk up the Mercedes drivers and their potential tomorrow. Saying they're very good on their front tyres in particular, which can be a factor with all the high energy demands. I know, Ben, you love the tyres. I can see it in your eyes.
Am I going over?
Okay. But no, so it's and again, the Mercedes drivers are like, look, these guys behind us are faster. But actually, when you think of it, is it going to be a good spectacle? It's perfect because you've got the two quicker drivers who've already crashed into each other once this week, going into Cops where there's quite a lot of history, and George Russell, who's let's see what happens from pole.
Excellent. We've also got to talk about Kimi Antonelli. Won today, faced the media.
So you better do the talking.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, wasn't it?
The press conference.
The press conference was most entertaining. It was the first time where he was able to speak freely. Until now, he's sort of been shrouded by the Mercedes PR blanket.
Very much.
Not been allowed to talk, and of course he faced the media, and I think he did quite well actually. He spoke openly, honestly. And I was impressed. I thought it was quite good of him to, speak in such a manner. He wasn't nervous. He spoke about him making mistakes at the start of the year, but in a similar position to George, perhaps, in the sense that maybe he's now finding his feet in that championship, and now that he's able to fight for wins, it's obviously going to open more doors for him and more chances. But of course, with that brings more pressure, more scrutiny. Be interesting to see how he develops over the tail end of the season.
Massively. But one thing I'd like to sort of throw back to you is, did he seem like a 17-year-old? Like, I think that's one thing we've talked about him so much.
Yeah.
And in the context of very famous other drivers, maybe he beating into that seat at Mercedes. Did he seem like a 17-year-old kid in that moment? I
think it's quite difficult. We've been talking about him for such a long time. It feels like an eternity since he joined that young driver program. And of course, he's been spoken, in relation to that Mercedes seat left vacant by Lewis. Does he seem like a 17-year-old? No, he seemed much more mature. For me, he's obviously been worked on at Mercedes. That they've leaned on him and sort of cultivated his media personality and helped him out with various different things. But he did seem quite assured of himself, so confident without being arrogant. No, he did seem, seemed very engaging. I was very impressed actually. I was quite surprised. I thought that there may be an immaturity around him, but there certainly wasn't. He was, pretty well versed, knew what to do, what to say. And as I say, for me, the most important thing was the honesty, the brutal honesty that sometimes we, come back to with Lando Norris. Oh gosh, you're beating yourself up again. He did something similar. I've made mistakes. It was all on me. So he kind of owned that situation. I thought that was quite refreshing. He didn't want to blame anyone else. So, long may that continue.